Now we are into the second session of today. We have Dr. Taga Jagaya, Assistant Professor of Special Education and Department of Education from University of Hartford. She's a program director of the Department of Education, and she has handled the courses on designing and implementing research, which is an apt topic. Where we are today into research. Wherever we turn, we are into research, and she is actually, what is it, Dr. Tilaga Jagaya. He's handling the subject of how to implement research. That's what we are yet to be known. We have known and we have not known fully. So she's dealing into it, and she has trained teachers, too many teachers, and she's teaching on learning of writing. That's where we fall behind. Most of the people, they are good at research, but they don't know how to write, how to bring it into writing. Uh, she she's in she's focuses on sophisticated sentence structures and improving writing quality. I hope she will she will improve all our writing quality into a lighter one, into a better one. I invite you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction, Dr. Rajesh. So I have to share my entire screen, I suppose. Tab on it. We tried. Shiro, sorry, I'm talking to my colleague. Shiro, did you share the entire screen? Is that how it worked?
Yeah, it's working, ma'am. It's working.
But I cannot see it on my side.
Yeah.
How do I see it on my side?
You'll have two screens actually.
But it's blank on my side, so I see this attendees.
Your camera is off, I think.
My camera is off. Oh, my camera needs to be turned on. So my camera is turned on, but I cannot see the PowerPoint slide because I don't know when to turn the slide if I cannot, to avoid an infinity.
Doctor, maybe you send to the organizer, ask them to.
I have already sent to the organizer.
You can ask them, the organizer. Doctor Rajesh, maybe ask the organizer to help her.
Yeah, Dr. Frank has my slide.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So while the organizer is trying to get my PowerPoint slide, so I'll introduce myself again. Thank you to Dr. Rajesh for introducing me. And I know it's evening in India and you have a long day. However, I'm really excited to be here. I have attended a few of this, but usually just as a participant. So this time I'm considered the resource person. So I teach together with Dr. Cheryl Sood at the University of Hartford in Connecticut, US. It's winter here, so it's pretty much about -3 centigrade, but it's not too cold for us, but it's just nice. And my area of expertise is in special education, and my research work focuses on writing, just as what Dr. Rajesh has mentioned. And I study students who struggle, who are at risk for writing. And I also have another line of research, which I recently embarked on, is to examine student engagement. For students with physical impairment, that means students with cerebral palsy, they have difficulty sitting upright. So those are the research that I'm working on. And at the University of Hartford, I teach both the undergraduate and graduate program. And one specific course related to today's topic is the writing a research paper. So that's what I do. I'm waiting for the PowerPoint slide so that I can begin my presentation. Unless you have a question before I start, that would be great too.
Yes, TJ, how are you?
Hi, my friend Dr. Ganesan. He was my colleague when I am originally from Malaysia, and I worked together with him. Nice to.
Let me on my camera to show my face, right?
Yes, how you doing? Yeah, good to see you.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Shiru, you didn't have problem, but I'm having the problem. I'm using my old laptop, not my new one, but still.
Yeah, no, I did. Do you want to email your presentation to me?
I don't know. If the organizer is doing it, I can.
It's with Dr. Frank, right? You already sent your slides to
Yeah,
Dr. Frank,
I
right?
did. I did. I sent slides and 2 Word documents to be shared with the participants. So I.
Dr. Tilaga, maybe you send to Sashita and she will help you to show the slide. Please send to her. Probably
Okay,
can.
I'll do that. I'll do that right
Yeah.
away. So I'll just forward. Hold on. I'm sorry to those participants waiting. I apologize for this technical glitch. I did worry this will happen.
It's okay. Take your time.
Oh no, it's
Still
late for
got time.
that.
Don't worry. Night
Late,
is still alive.
late night.
We will wait for you from Malaysia.
Dr. Tilaga,
The Sabahan.
yesterday I presented in Mexico, 2 o'clock in the morning. I waited until 2 o'clock in the morning, Mexico.
Oh my
You,
goodness.
you just imagine how tough is my life. But it's okay. It was very great conference. So don't worry. They can wait for you.
Yeah.
Ganesh, how are you?
Yes, Prof. How are you?
Okay, Sheryl, I just
Fine, fine, fine.
you, so hopefully you're getting it.
Got it.
Thank you very much.
Hai Dr. Genison. Ya, apa kabar?
Kabar baik.
Is it just 2 Word documents?
And a PowerPoint slide as well.
That did not come through.
Oh, really? What is going on? How else can I share this with you, Sheryl?
Do you want to do OneDrive?
I think I'm going to put it in OneDrive. Okay, I'm going to put it in OneDrive. I put it in the accreditation folder for now, it will be automatic. I don't have to.
Yeah, that will be fine.
Okay, so that I don't have to share the file or whatever. I'm going to go into accreditation. All right, straight away into the accreditation folder. Hold on, let me copy the file over. All right, I don't want that. Do I have that one? Name of the file is Final Literature Review. You'll find that.
Let me refresh.
Wow. It's under the accreditation folder. No, I'm not going further on. Yeah, I don't even see it on my side. It doesn't. Not sure why it's not working.
Nope, I don't see it.
I know. It's strange. Any other experts around? What is the best way to do this? Okay, I'm trying to. Somehow. Okay, I'm going to do a WeTransfer. Maybe because the file size is huge, I'm going to do a WeTransfer. Wow. Be patient with me, everyone. This is taking a little bit of time.
It's okay. We'll wait.
Yeah, it's just in a minute. I'm going to send the file.
All right, I found your.
You found it? Oh,
Yeah.
thank good. Okay, I'm not going to go through this. Yeah. Thank you.
Not a problem. I will.
Hope you can open it.
Share. Oops.
Oh, this is my beautiful PowerPoint presentation.
Why did it disappear?
Huh?
Do you see it?
I don't see anything. I don't know if others are seeing it. Wow.
Do you see it now?
Okay, do it.
Yeah. Okay, I don't see it. Oh, yeah, I do see it. Okay, good. Thank you, Shiro. This is
You're
perfect.
welcome. So
All right.
just prompt me. I'll try and keep up, but just prompt me to move.
I will do that. Okay, so you can see my title today, Literature Review Basics, Finding, Evaluating, and Organizing the Literature. So this is more for the starting of how you do your literature review. Next slide, Shiro. So my workshop goals for today, hopefully you attendees would have a better understanding of what a literature review is, the steps that we use in the literature review model, and it means how you actually conduct your literature review, and then how you write a literature review. I want to be mindful, and I'm also aware that all of you come from different fields, so this workshop is not as comprehensive like whichever fields that you're from. So also whatever I'm presenting to you today may be field specific. So sometimes it'll be varied in your field. So I just want to make this disclaimer ahead of time. So it may not be applicable to every field, but I think there's going to be a lot of similarities. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so before we start, I was hoping, I know there's no chat function here, if you can respond. When you hear the phrase literature review, what words come to your mind? Like, anybody? Very quickly, 1 or 2 persons.
Previous research.
Yeah, review of research. Thank you. That's very positive. You know what comes to my mind? Sorry?
Ma'am, to identify the research gap.
Yes, to identify research gap. Thank you. Very good. Very good answers. Well, when I think about literature review, what comes to my mind is a lot of work. That's just on the light note. Okay, I'll move on. Next slide, Chiro. So what is a literature review? So first of all, your literature review should be guided by a central research question. Like I noticed the last question asked in Dr. Sood's presentation, that was a real segue to this. So you need to know, it's not about like straight away what my method I'm going to use, like what's your central question? What is the problem that you are trying to investigate? You need to know that. So that you do before even you start your literature review. So, and I also want you to know that a literature review, like you say, you're reviewing research, identifying the gap, yes. So it's not just what I teach literature review to my students, most of my students thinking, oh, the idea of literature review is just collecting articles from whatever they can get from their library database or from Google Scholar, and they just select them and then start reviewing. So that's not, it's actually an overview of current knowledge related to the central research question that you are working on. So it's important that you notice that, the literature review is actually giving you a chance to demonstrate your knowledge, demonstrate your familiarity with the topic. And then it also allows you, because every research that you do, you need to come up with a theoretical framework. So it allows you to develop a theoretical framework and a methodology that you want to use. So it's very important when you read all these research articles, this is where you're going to find like, oh, so this is a theoretical framework I'm going to use. This is a methodology that I can come up with. And also, literature review gives you a chance to position yourself in relation to other researchers and other theorists. So it gives you a position like, oh, this is my position, my take. All right. And of course, it also shows you how your research is addressing the gap. Like one of you mentioned just now, how are you contributing to the literature? What's the gap and how are you contributing? I just want to let you know, like I mentioned just now, most times when people think of literature review, especially my students, what they do is they find 10 articles and every paragraph, 1 article. They're just summarizing it. That is not a real literature review. Next slide, Shiro. Thank you. So before getting started, we have to ask the question. There's several questions we have to ask. What's the purpose of this literature review? What are the readers, who are the readers of my literature review? Who are the people in the field I'm writing for? Some of these questions you have to ask, okay? And then what is my final product? Is it going to be a technical report? Is it going to be a journal article, a grant proposal, thesis, or dissertation? Why you ask these questions? Because every purpose that you have, the way you write your literature review differs. So for the purpose of this presentation, I'm focusing on journal article and thesis or dissertation. So not for grant proposal or technical report. Next slide, please. So now we come to the literature review model. So this is the typical framework that most scholars use when writing a literature review. So in this model, there are 5 steps. Some people would use a 6-step model. That means they break it up even to one extra component. But all the models that we have, they're pretty similar, and the general idea is similar actually. So I'll walk you through each step today in the following slides. But I'm just wondering, I'm curious, when you do your literature review, do you have a framework or do you have like a model of steps that you follow? Anybody wants to share? Okay, I'll go to the next slide. Shiro, thank you. So the first step here, we have a 5-step model. So the first step here is selecting a topic. And selecting a topic itself is a process of its own. Ask yourself, what is your field and what are some important questions you want to answer? So for example, do you want to study about student engagement? That's an example close to me. So, or do you want to do 3D printing? So what are important things in this 3D printing area that you want to answer? So why is this important and why is this relevant to your field? Make sure your research question, so when you ask research questions, they're not too broad, not too narrow, and also they should be manageable. I know sometimes when my students write research questions, it's almost like 10 studies can be in one research question. So I have an example here. So I have my topic. So my topic is the one, if you can see in the red box, if it's showing a red on your side. So analysis of syntactic complexity and its relationship to writing quality in 8th grade argumentative essays. So I am narrowing my topic, and this is my topic, and what's important in my topic? Syntactic complexity is important, writing quality is important, and I'm contextualizing it in argumentative essays. So same thing, I have 2 research questions that I presented here, and I try to respond to this question. So I said, how does the 4 latent variables represent a good fit? So I'm trying to respond to the question. So I'm trying to identify, I have some measures that I'm using to identify syntactic complexity. And then my next research question is identifying if there's a relationship. Now, what's important here, it's not so much what my topic, my research questions are. What's important is if you see the yellow highlights. I have done the yellow highlights. The yellow highlights here indicate these are keywords in my topic. So why are these why am I highlighting these keywords? Because when I want to look for the journal articles, I need to use the descriptors, the keywords to in your library database in order to find the articles related to my topic and related to my research questions. And that's why I selected these keywords. I said, this is what I'm going to use when I search for my article. Next slide, please. Now it's the second step, that is you're going to search the literature. A lot of activities happen at this stage. So in step 2 itself, it's a long period of time where you're going to spend a lot of time. So if you look at the diagram, you may be doing all of these activities or some of these activities. So in your search for relevant articles, you will have to preview. You cannot read all the articles that you find, right? So you have to preview the articles, and you have to select if these articles are relevant, and then you have to organize it in a manner that you understand. It doesn't matter if I or anyone else understand, but you must understand your organization. And I'm telling you, it's key, it's important, because most times we find research articles and we put it in a folder and we don't organize it, or we don't label the folder accurately. And when you want to go back into and finding it, you will spend more hours trying to actually determine which articles are relevant. And when I talked about previewing, selecting, and organizing, you need to have certain skills that really helps you out here. So for example, you need to know how to scan, you need to know how to skim, you need to know how to map the data. So that means coming up with a conceptual map. So skimming skills, scanning skills are very important. That means you're not reading the whole article, but you are just skimming to see, okay, look at the abstract, look at it, sorry, I'll start with the topic, the title of the research journal. Okay, looks relevant. Then go into the abstract. Look at the keywords. Yeah, looks relevant. So you need to identify and scan, and then go into your whole research, the journal article, look at the subheadings, main headings. And then you look at the tables, you look at the figures. So all this you need to skim and scan, and then you come up with a conceptual map, you catalog it, and you document it. And I will show you some examples later. So cataloging is important, like I said just now, so that you do not waste a lot of time later on when you come back to this folder and like, okay, I need this research journal, this research paper, and I do not know where I placed it. And plus, why do you need to catalog? Usually when we start research in one area, that's going to be your area for a long time. So it's good to have them organized in a folder so that, you know, for the next 10 years, you can use these articles, refer back to these articles, even if you don't use it. Next slide, please. Now, I was saying that it's important that you know how to search the articles. So you need to use some tools. I'm not sure what it is like in India and Malaysia. So you can use your library database where you have like Google Scholar, JSTOR, OPSCO, what do you call Academic Premier, Cite Info, a lot of databases that you can use. And you have to use multiple databases. And also you can be subject specific or multidisciplinary. So if you need help in this, you would find that if you seek out a librarian in your university, they will be able to guide you. And I think most universities do provide you training on how to use these databases, and they will teach you like how to use your keywords, how to use the descriptors. They'll be able to guide you. And I'll show you an example in the next slide. Next slide, please. So here's an example. If you want to search for your article, so we need to use some descriptors or keywords, other words, all right? So you make a list of keywords, right? Remember, I highlighted in yellow, and I'm showing that in my topic. So those are highlighted in yellow. So use these keywords. And in the search box, you know, when you have the search box in the when you go to the library database, there's a search box. So these are it's one method that I use, and I really can get, sometimes I even get 20 to 30,000 articles within that topic. But there are some tricks that you have to use. So you have to use, for example, like parentheses. So the parenthesis means anything that you put within that parenthesis, those words are very important, and the database have to look for those journals, journal articles, I mean, all right? And then I also use quotations. Quotation means you have to find articles that has exact match to what I'm looking for. For example, in this, if you look in the blue box, I have my quotations in middle school, high school. So which means to say any journal articles I'm looking for that I can retrieve will come back to me as all these journal articles will have middle school and high school in it. So I'm really making it very specific. And I also would use terms like and, or not. So and means include term A, include term B. If you say or, if you don't have the terms A and B, can you also find term C? So it's like and or. And you can also use the word not to eliminate what you call the what you don't want. Sometimes the articles is I'm not looking for, say for example, if I'm looking for sentences, I'm not looking for sentences in a reading context. So I can put there not reading. Okay. Another trick that we can use is we don't write the full word, like for example, writing or children, because that will narrow the search. So what you do is you put that W-R-I-T and put an asterisk. So any word, for example, writes, write, writing, all that will be collected into your database, because it means like anything that starts with W-R-I-T, those are important to me. Or child, that means you'll get child's, children, so you'll get those articles too. So this is some of the tips that we use specifically when I was doing my doctoral program. So these are some of the tricks given to us so that we can find relevant and current or important articles when we use the library database. Anyone has a question here before I continue going on? No? Okay, I'll go on to the next slide. So now the search strategies. So once you have found articles using the descriptors, you also can look, the library database will give you, okay, 385 articles. So you save them all and then you go through. So the trick is to go through the title to see if that's relevant. Go through the abstract, see if it's relevant. Keywords, if they are relevant. And then all the subheadings that you have in the paper. And once you've done that, you would have like sifted or selected like 50 articles. And what you can do is you go to the reference list or you see how many times each article, each researcher is citing someone else. If they are citing a specific author like 5 times, and every other journal articles you notice, everyone is citing this person. For example, in my field, everyone likes to cite Steve Graham. So I find that Steve Graham is cited in almost every article that I look for in writing. So then you know this must be a very renowned researcher or he's been doing important research work, and I'm going to search under his name what articles he has published. Then that's one way of getting journal articles. Another way is citation tracking. So you can go to the reference list at the back of your journal, and then you look at who all have been cited, and then you look at their topics that they have published on, and you can also do those way of searching. This is called hand searching. All right. Okay, so as you identify the articles, just as I said, you have to make sure you read the abstract so to know whether it's relevant to you. Don't forget, always keep track of where you find your articles. I've told you many times just now that I always forget where I put things. Sometimes you get so tired, you don't really organize well, and then you spend a lot of time trying to go back to retrieve them. Okay, and also make sure that you are taking notes while you are doing this researching whether the articles are relevant, and I'll show you examples how to take notes. Next slide, please. Of course, organizing the articles. If you don't have your own database, the library would have, would have like RefWorks, Mendeley, Zotero, EndNote, and etc. You can find these places where you can organize your articles. As I've mentioned before, this itself can be one whole presentation for you. Your library would have someone who is knowledgeable in this. They can actually train you. You just have to go and ask them how to use RefWorks or Mendeley, how you can actually save all the articles that you have selected from the library database. I just wanted to point out to you that you need to organize your articles. Next slide, please. So when is it time to stop searching? So you do this search and then you get like, 5,000 articles, 3,000 articles. And then when do you think it's time to search? You tell me. Anybody? When do you think you will stop searching for relevant articles? Anyone has experience can share. How did you stop? When do you stop? Like, okay, I'm done. I'm not searching for any more articles. Okay, looks like I have a shy audience. It's okay, no problem. We'll go to the next slide. All right, so when is it time to stop searching? We cannot be searching forever when looking for information on our topic. So we have to go to the finish line at some point, right? So we can stop searching for articles when we keep getting the same authors, same articles, same methodology, not to say same results, similar results, same experiments, same measurements used. So when it's come to that point, like it's, a point of like, oh, this is too repetitive, we can use the law of diminishing returns that we study in economics. So you know that, okay, I'm not getting anything new, I'm just getting everything the same this time. So time to stop. Also, once as you read articles, you will see a lot of patterns. And once you notice that pattern is the same, then you know it's time to stop. And sometimes you find your library database is taking you back to some old, very, very old, like 1940s, 1950s, those kind of articles. I say, oh, materials too old, not relevant. Again, I want to remind you, old materials may be relevant if they are seminal studies. That means they are the studies that, the groundbreaking kind of study, then you want to keep that because you need to cite to say that this was what was found in 50 years ago until today. We find that most researchers are still using the same theory. You only don't use them if someone has debunked that theory, but otherwise you still have to go back to the very important studies that was done in the past and still recognized and still being used. Okay. Well, one more reason is I've run out of time. If you have run out of time, of course, you have to get to your finish line, so you stop searching. Okay. Next slide, please. All right. So now, once you have selected your articles, once you have stopped searching, you said you're done with searching, you now have to evaluate and select sources. Earlier, you were evaluating, but you were just skimming and scanning. Now you're going to read. So from all that articles you have selected, let's say you now have 20 articles that you want to use. So this is where you evaluate and you select your sources. Very critical. This is very critical. You must question everything you read. Please don't just read, oh, this is relevant, I just absorb it. No, you have to question everything you read. You probably cannot read like everything that has been written on the topic. That is why you narrow certain number of articles and you're going to read that thoroughly. Then, as I've mentioned before, you already have scanned the title, you already scanned the abstracts, and now make sure you also look at the figures, the tables. Those are very important. They give you information about your topic. All right. Then you do a quick read of your introduction to get a sense of, okay, is this relevant? And then you start questioning everything that the author has written, or why the author used this methodology. Is this the methodology that I am going to work on? Or is this going to be conflicting with mine? So, or how does this article like add to what I want to do? How does this address the gap that I'm going to address? So is there going to is it going to challenge my thoughts, my ideas, or is this article going to help me contribute more to the literature? So you have to start asking yourself. And again, these skills you cannot learn overnight. You have to practice. And that is why in most of your graduate courses or doctoral program that you do, we are assigned to actually write a standalone literature so that we have the practice on how to look at the arguments presented by other studies. What are the strengths and weaknesses that we find in other studies, and we can overcome that to address in our study? What about their results, their conclusions? What does it say about our topic? So we have to start thinking. And this is where we say we are not just reading and summarizing, we are analyzing and we are synthesizing the information. Literature review is not about a summary. It is about synthesizing the information. That's very important. That's a key word. All right. Okay, next slide, please. So I told you earlier that I'm going to show you an example of how you make notes. So you have to make notes and cite your sources. And this is a method I use so that I know that when I go back, I can find. Usually I use an Excel spreadsheet because the Excel spreadsheet, I have some screenshots I'm going to show you, but it's such a tiny font. And that's why I created a table here so that you can see. If you look at this table, you can see that I even have a code, like my research article that I found. I even code 001 because sometimes I find hundreds of articles. So I coded 001, article type research, because you can have technical report, you can have sometimes just conference presentation. So I want to make sure I know what article type it is. I list my authors, I list my date, I list my title, I name the journal. I also put in the keywords, the descriptors, what defines this journal article. I copy the abstract. I'm not synthesizing. I'm copying the abstract. I put it in. And status of article. Have I obtained it? Because I get this from the library. Sometimes I have to wait. I have to request. So if I have it, I say obtained. And then if I have read it, I'll put in a short summary to say what this article is about. So you can have, this is not the only way to do it. You can have various ways of, or different information that you are collecting. You can do different columns. And if you use an Excel spreadsheet, this is a good way. You can go on to the next tabs and, fill in whatever you want. So what does this do to you? This way, you can actually return to this Excel spreadsheet and say, this is the article I'm looking for. If you have a list of like 20, 30, this is the one I'm looking for, and you have all the information. And you also have the citation, and this way you can avoid plagiarism. Okay. Next question, next slide, please. All right. So this is my Excel spreadsheet that I took a screenshot of, and I wanted to show you. In this example, I have a different focus. So I already have everything, the information about these articles, I have them, but now I'm going into the details, the content of the articles that I've read. I want to know if I am examining sentences, what are some of the measures other researchers have used to examine sentences? So I have a column for measures. And then what was their definition? Are they using the same definition? Are they using a different definition? I have a column for definition. Most importantly, page numbers. Oh my God, you don't know how much it has saved my time. If you have the page number, right? Sometimes now, some of these articles I've saved 5 years ago, now I go back, all I have to do is, page number 36. I just have to go there. I don't have to look for it anymore. It's all there. It's all organized. All right. And if I have any examples, I can have the examples there. And if you have more information, you can you can put in a lot of columns with information. All right. Anyone has any questions so far? Next slide, please. Okay, this is another Excel spreadsheet. Again, I use this, as I said, as I'm reading my journal articles, I have this information. So I have empirical research, peer-reviewed research. What is it? Is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? Is it experimental? So I want to make sure I have that information. And I'm looking for, very specifically, who are the participants in these studies? I want to know, have they studied first grade? Have they studied second grade? Have they studied seventh grade? So I have one column for that. And I'm interested in only looking for students' primary language in English. Did they do that? Or were they studying students who have English as a second language? And I have that information too. So, and then I also want to know, what about the disabilities? Did they investigate students with specific disabilities? I have one column for that. And I color code it. So the darker purple, if you can see, it's darker color of the purple, means these articles meet the criteria for the topic I am going to do research on. So darker. Lighter purple, okay, kind of meets, but not really. But I can still use it. I don't have the orange brown here. If I have anything orange brown, that means that article did not meet the criteria and I'm not going to use it. But I still keep the information. I'm not deleting it because who knows, I might need it in the future. All right. So these are examples using spreadsheet, and I'll show you some other example. I think this is an example. I have shared this documents with your Dr. Frank. These are Word documents taken from North Carolina University. Shido, can you please move to the next slide? All right. So they have thinking tool. I just did a screenshot. This is not a full page. I'll show you the full page after this. So these are thinking tool, how you analyze a journal article. So you make sure you have your citation. Remember the citations are always important because looking for them later is very hard. Shiro, can you go to the next slide? So this is a different one. Can you go to the next slide, please? All right, so this is the full document. That's now what I showed in screenshot. So you have the purpose of the study, you have the major findings, you have how does it support your research question, or how does it contradict or refute your research question. Next slide, Shiro. All right, and you also have continuing, like how did the authors test their hypothesis? So you have all this information, and what's the importance of this scientific work? And you have this graphic. This is a graphic organizer, and you fill it out, you type it out. You don't handwrite anymore, so you type it out, and you save them for each article that you go through. All right, Shiro, I'm sorry, I actually organized it. I'm surprised this presentation slides didn't go in order. Can you go back to? No, go back to right. One more. Yeah, it's in correct order. Yeah, one more. Sorry, one more. Okay, can you go back one slide before? So sorry about that. So this one is another Word document. Also analyzing, there are two sets, okay? The first set was giving you all the what the research methods. So, you find the quantitative information, qualitative information, how it works for your research question. And this one, you're comparing journal article 1, journal article 2, journal article 3 in the same page. So you have columns, and then you're just looking for main idea 1, main idea 2, and then supplemental information. So these are graphic organizers to help you guide your thinking. So remember, when you do literature review, it's not just collecting information and putting it down on your paper. It's to guide your thinking so that you understand what you have read, and then you can synthesize the information. So this is why using these approaches will actually help you come up with the content for your literature review. Thank you, Sheila. Next slide, please. Yeah, next one. All right. Wow, we've just come to step 3 so far. So now this is where the bulk of the work is. All right. As you read each article, find the connections and find the relationships between article 1 and article 2. What is the connection? You have to find that. All right. So remember, you have to identify. So remember this, the spreadsheet that I showed you, or the graphic organizer. You can use them. They will help you to find the trends. They'll help you to find the patterns, whether the patterns in the theory they use, the method, the results. It'll help you to find the patterns. All right. And look for themes that are repeated, the recurring themes. Find that. For example, the research that I do in writing articles, I found that most of the time the themes that repeat is that older students or mature students, they can write more complex sentences. And then I found also struggling writers or students with disabilities, they write very simple, short, and choppy sentences. So these are the recurring themes that I read. So as I read this, as you read across all these articles, you'll find there'll be an argument. Somehow you'll see the debate between one researcher and the next researcher. You'll find that there will be a debate. And I understand that debate. And then you must find, where do the authors agree? Where do they disagree? These are the things that you put in your literature review. And also look for which direction the authors are going. Are they moving away from the traditional approach? Are they coming up with, now, is there going to be a paradigm shift? These are the things you have to look for. Because when you write your literature review, you have to point out, 10 years ago, in previous studies, researchers were only looking at this method. Now there's a paradigm shift. Everyone is going towards technology. So you want to make those statements. And the most important aspect in a literature review, and one of you have pointed out in one of the question sessions just now, is that the gaps in the literature. In your literature review, you must point out where the gaps are. So as I've mentioned before, my students just throw in a summary. That's not what a literature review is about. So the gaps are important because it tells the reader, whoever is reading, or the researcher, that this is now pivotal, this is now important. In this area, this piece of information is missing. So we have to fill in this piece of information so that we can add to the scientific literature. Otherwise, it's not a novel research, and therefore your study is not contributing at all to achieve the goals of science. All right. And also, when you have the gap, when you write the gap statement, it's very easy. Next sentence would be, therefore, the purpose of the study is, so that's how you continue your statement. I'll show you an example. Can you go to the next slide, please? So I'm going to show you an example of a study. So I'm using social media and body image as the topic. So I found that most research focused on young women. So to impress people, I think you find a lot of focus is on young women. And then you find that there's an increasing interest in the visual aspects of social media. These are the trends. But what's the gap? The gap is there is lack of robust research on highly visual platforms. That means not many people are focusing on Instagram and Snapchat. And this is a gap. And this is where I want to address in my research. So this is what you want to say. All right, so I'm going to go to an example of a gap statement. I'm going to show you. Next slide, please. So an example of a gap statement is for the one on the social media. So that's the first light yellow box. So you can say the gap. Nonetheless, there's a lack of robust research on more highly visual social media, such as Instagram and Snapchat, that have gained more recent popularity among younger generations. So you're trying to say, Instagram and Snapchat popular, but you find that no research has been done in this area. So that's what you're trying to say. And I'm also sharing with you an example of my study, I'm talking about syntactic complexity, that means complex sentences and writing quality. And I say the relationship between syntactic complexity and writing quality has not yet been clarified. I'm saying it's not clarified. There's no relationship. So far, no studies are talking about what's the relationship if you use more complex sentences to writing quality. So I say, so it's not obvious if these latent variables contribute to writing quality. So that's the gap statement. And then I can follow this with my purpose statement. So the purpose of this study is to address issues faced by previous studies and now to work towards something that we use an automated version or something like that you can write. I gave you 2 other sentence examples, like you can, to write your gap questions, you can say the key question remains, or it is important to address. These are some language you can use to write your gap statements. Next slide, please. We've come to step 4. So remember, we have 5 steps. So we're at step 4. I have a little bit more time. So here you can outline your literature review structure. So we have a few patterns. You either use chronological approach. So in other words, the chronological approach means you organize by time. When I say organize by time, doesn't mean you're listing down the information. Again, you go by time period. If you're investigating year 1990 to year 2000, that's a time period. And you synthesize information. You're not listing information. What did it look like in 1990 to 2000? And then what did it look like 2000 to 2020? You have subheadings, and then you present your information. So that's chronological. Another way is you can use thematic. Thematic means what are the themes that appear when you were reading. Then you can organize the themes based on the level of importance, organize the more important theme at the top, and then go all the way down. And within the thematic approach, you can actually use chronological as well. So you can combine the thematic approach, and then you can say, oh, 2 years ago, it was, the trends were like this. 2 years later, the trends were different. So you can also do that. And there's another approach, methodological approach. This is a little bit hard. People who are very highly interested in methodology, and the last one is theoretical. If people are interested in theories, they use this approach. So what you do is you read all the papers, and then you find what kind of methodology you notice from, across all these studies. Are they using the same type of methodology? Are they using more innovative, more or sometimes more technological based? So is that what you see? And then you want to compare one method with the other. And you also have to look at the results section to see how that came about. And then you discuss the topic based on the method. All right, the theoretical way is also the same thing. You look at all the theories that researchers have used. Have they moved from the past theory? Have they come up with a new theory? So these are the things that you actually can organize your structure. All right. Next slide, please. So now is the step 5, where you write your literature review. Just like any paper you write, you need to have an introduction, you need to have a body, you need to have a conclusion. All right. So I'm going to just show you briefly how that works, how that looks like, because I know you're pretty familiar with introduction, body, and conclusion. Next slide, Cheryl. So in the introduction, you clearly establish the focus of, or the purpose of your literature review, state the central problem, and then give a brief summary, and also kind of bring in the gap, kind of put the gap in. So I have 2 parts here. One is standalone literature review. That means a literature review only. There's no research to it. You're just discussing what others have done. So you provide the background on the topic and just describe the objectives of the literature review. But the focus here today is, like, if you're writing your dissertation, thesis, or research paper, you have to state your central problem, and you have to then provide information, brief summary, and gap in the literature in your introduction itself. All right, so I have in the red box below an example of a gap. While there has been much research on varied sentences are important to improve writing quality, few researchers have taken syntactic complexity into consideration, and that will end my introductory paragraph. Next slide, please. So now we go into the body. So a good literature review doesn't just summarize sources. I have said this many times already. And it actually analyzes, it actually synthesizes information and critically evaluates to give a clear picture on the state of knowledge in this area that you are researching on. So the structure of your body, the body paragraphs will depend on which approach you took. Are you taking the chronological approach? Are you taking the thematic approach, or the methodological, or the theoretical approach? So it will depend. So that's the structure. So every time you write your paragraph, make sure you engage them with the sources in a critical way. You're not just putting in information. You are actually having a debate, an argument, a discussion as you are writing your paragraph. Mention the strengths, mention the weaknesses of the sources. So you kind of interpret their data, you look at their results, you interpret their data, and evaluate the usefulness. All right, so you have to do the synthesis. Synthesis writing is not easy. It requires some kind of training as well. All right, next slide, please. Here's an example. I just wanted to show you an example how you can write a body paragraph. Sorry, this is the introductory paragraph, actually. So you must start with a topic sentence to frame your whole paragraph. So this is an example on body image. So this is a topic sentence that you have. You frame the whole paragraph. That's the first sentence, followed by, if you have this study that, this earth-shattering kind of study that you want to provide, bring in that information. That's the one in blue. That's the pivotal study in blue. And then you bring in your critical evaluation. Yeah, this study said this, but what is the critical evaluation you have about it? So for example, the Grabe, Ward, and Hyde said that exposure to mass media is linked to body image dissatisfaction among women. And then you have to have your critical evaluation. However, in the era of rapidly changing digital technologies, so you say, media paradigm is no longer adequate to understand how people engage with images. So you want to bring in your critical evaluation. And then followed by, what theory backs up your critical evaluation? You need to have a theory that supports it. Okay? And then you bring in the theory. After that, you bring in all the information that you have gathered from other sources. You synthesize that information with citation. You argue the case. This is where the one in purple font is arguing the case. You're synthesizing information. That's where the debate is. And finally is where you state your gap. However, there's still a lack of robust research in this area. Blah, blah, blah. So this is an example of how you can write your literature review. Next slide, please. Okay, in the conclusion slide, you should summarize the key findings and that you have taken, and then you emphasize, there's a gap and what you are going to now address. So you discuss, so if you have a standalone literature review, that means it's not a research paper. So you discuss the overall implications, make suggestions for future research. But if it's a research paper, show how your literature has informed your approach and what the gaps are and how you will address it. Very important in the conclusion. Next paragraph, Shiro. So this completes the 5 steps in the literature review model. First step, select a topic, search the literature review, identify themes, debates, and gaps, outline the literature, write the review. You're all set. And this is how you go through this writing a literature review. Next slide, Shiro. So if you have any questions, all answered here. I may have been speeding up.
Doctor?
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Professor Bala from Malaysia, University of Malaysia, Kelantan. All right. I'm also a good friend of Dr. Ganesan. He's my junior in USM. We studied together. Okay. I have a very specific question to you.
Yeah.
When you talk about writing literature review for qualitative and quantitative, the student come and cross, don't know where to start, where to end. And I read a lot of theses from all over the country. Sometimes I read and read. Sometimes I myself don't know what they're writing. So the basic question is, I mean, your way of explaining probably is more on the positivist. They are non-positivist and I'm the non-positivist group, right? But of course, I read a lot of positivist theses, which I think come from quantitative. My struggle is when I read, sometimes students don't know how to differentiate concept and theory. And then they don't know how to come up with a hypothesis. And they don't know what is the meaning by theoretical framework, conceptual framework, research framework, all confused, So I say to myself, what is they doing? Are they going through a proper, because you see, research is a global. Doesn't matter, you come from US, you come from Europe, you come from anywhere in the country in the world, we are doing the same thing. So
Correct.
I know that it's only one way to do. So when student doing on quantitative, they're supposed clear on the research statement very clearly. What is a gap on theory? And that's the most important for the PhD or master's level. And then what is a gap in practical? And then when you do a quantitative, I come across, they do about Malaysia, example, right? They do, Canada, they do anything, we don't care about the country. But when you do quantitative, they should go on the fundamental issue. That means the real theory and conceptual issue that undefined, there's a gap, and you have to come out that. But that's a failure. They just talk about country-based. It's not country-based. This is okay. We're coming back to the other one, the qualitative. We are not so much concerned about theory. Sometimes we start from nothing, and we can do just one respondent. That's all. We come out that, and we don't have any fundamental title. There's no way we can backward and forward. That is the beauty of the qualitative, but very tough. So what is your advice on the literature review? What are people doing on the positivism and non-positivism? How to drive them? Because they don't know where to go. Sometimes they are writing like qualitative, like quantitative. The question that they drive is all like quantitative based on the question. So we need to put some gap. Another thing, doctor, why quantitative writes some 500 pages? What happening to them? And the literature review about 200 pages. And as an examiner, I found very, very sad, because why the supervisor doesn't supervise correctly according to what they do. They submit to me, and as an examiner, I had to fail them. Or I read Viva. I got finished, I read Viva back. I said, sorry, you go back and do Viva again. So where to stop? And I see one thesis in Australia, only 100 pages, PhD, clear, finished. And it's a top PhD, and he completed and he became top professor. So what is your advice? How many pages? Where to stand? Or what to do? That's all. Thank you, doctor.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your question and everything that you outlined, because I did do my undergrad and I also did a master's degree in Malaysia, and I totally get it. And I could have been one of those students that you were talking about. Didn't know what was the conceptual framework, didn't know the theoretical framework, didn't know, I was just throwing in information in my literature review, and that went like hundreds of pages of my literature review. My master's degree thesis is thicker than my PhD thesis. So you're right. Even I do know people who finish a PhD thesis in 75 pages. We don't really need lengthy literature review. And that is why I walked you through the process. You have to critically analyze what you only, and then you also can have a time frame. So you need to have a time frame, like how far back are you going to go? So you have a time frame, and then even if you have hundreds of articles within that time frame, you are going to be very selective. So these are skills, actually, I totally want to say, these are skills when I was a student in Malaysia, it wasn't taught to me. It wasn't taught to me, like, how do I actually select the right articles? So it's a training that we have to go through. And then what makes certain topics very important for a literature review? So these are actually some training need to be provided to students so that they have an idea. And then they also need to know, like you say, positivism, non-positivism. So those kind of concepts need to be taught. And also, students, when we are writing a research or we are selecting a topic, we are picking a topic that we want, and then we don't study enough in that whole area. And that is why we have a concept in the US, I'm not sure if it exists everywhere else, we have to do a qualifying exam on a literature review. And we need to study thoroughly the whole area, whether it's going back to 1920s, we need to read. Whether it's applicable, it's okay, just read to have an understanding and build that knowledge in our heads that we become an expert in that area. And when we are writing our research, whether it's a thesis, it's a dissertation, or if it's a research paper, we are very selective. We know what information needs to go in. And that is why when we are reading one paper to another paper, we have to be critical. We have to be critical about, okay, what is this researcher saying? What's his argument? What is his debate? Then what's research author B? What's his debate? Or what's her debate? What's her argument? And that's why you pull this information, and then you have to sit and you have to think about it. The thinking process is a lot. So that is why, as I told you, even my students, even in the US, all they do is they summarize author A, summarize author B, and put together. And I say, what are you giving me? You're just giving me what author A did, what author B did, but I don't know what's the argument. I don't know what's the debate, and I do not know where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are. So these are some skills we have to teach students. We have to show them. You need to show me this when you're writing. I cannot remember if you had another question just now. I'm just trying to focus on your questions that you asked, Dr. Bala. Is there something else that I need to respond to your question?
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Any other questions?
TJ, Dr. TJ.
Yes,
Yes, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Ganesan?
Okay, very good session now on literature review. As you said, of course, I agree with you that literature review is the most important thing in a research. All right. I mean, doesn't matter whatever topic we are doing, method or so on. Literature review for me, personally, I feel that it's very important for a research topic, especially for PhD students or master's level. As you were telling, it's not to summarize what we read. It's actually, like you said, analyzing and synthesizing of what we read from the past research or articles and so on. So, I mean, what I can say here is actually literature review should be able to find the gap, right, TJ? The research gap that we're going to do in our research. In my case, I was doing my PhD in pure historical studies. Pure historical studies. The literature review process may be different from other research area because I was doing on so Tamil newspapers in Malaysia on Indians. So when I read a lot of research, I even read on research done in other newspapers in Malaysia, Malay newspapers, Chinese newspapers, and English newspapers. Although I was doing on Tamil newspaper, but I want to find out what has been done in other languages in Malaysia, especially because as we know, we have Malay, Chinese, and also and Indians. So I was reading other research done on Malay newspapers and also Chinese newspapers, and then I get very good idea on what they have done, and then I find the gap, and at last I come up with my topic on the thinking of Tamil newspapers, which nobody done, but because people always do on the issues, the development, the history. I was doing on the thinking of the Tamil newspapers, where I focus on the editorial in the newspaper. So that is the gap I found. This is for historical research. So and it's basically on the Indians, the Tamil newspapers, the issues, the thinking on Indians. Although I read on other research on Malay newspaper and so on, at last I came up the topic on the thinking of Tamil newspapers. So for those research scholars, especially PhD students, like what Dr. TJ was saying, literature review is very important. In fact, as you say, literature review means you have to read a lot. You have to spend your time, right? That is the formula, right? Yes. You have to read a lot. You have to spend your time, right, TJ? Any advice from you for the students? I think there are many PhD students also here. I think so.
Oh yeah. Okay. So it's a thing. Okay, like what we do. Some examples I took, like in the US, is that when we are doing our doctoral program, PhD program, or master's program, we tell them to go read, find an area that you're interested in, read, do a lot of reading, find articles. So you go through the process, as I said just now, you go through the process and read, and then make notes, take notes. The Excel spreadsheet, do that. Because, you know, if you write in paper somewhere, it's going to go missing. Put in an Excel spreadsheet, make sure your files don't get lost. Put in an Excel spreadsheet, and then you save them. Whether, you know, you don't know when you need it. Even now, what I did in my doctoral program, I still go back to the Excel spreadsheet and get that information. Like, oh yeah, so I don't have to do the work again. So that is organization. But you really need to read. You have to ask yourself, what is the story that they're building here? What's the story I'm getting from all the other researchers? So it's like whenever you read, like even the research papers, whenever you read a journal article, you can see that the authors are building a story. they're telling this is what happened, this is what's going on, but one author said this way, another author said that way, but it's not true. If you look at another study in Canada, you look at another study in Australia, they found this, but in the US, we did not get that. So maybe this is where we need to go find it. So you need to tell a story. So a literature review tells a story. It builds a context. So with that context, once you write your literature review, what happens? Once you have your results, remember when you do the discussion, you are going to come back to the literature review to support your findings.
Yeah, correct.
So you say, this is my finding, and the literature review backs it up. This is my finding. This is corroborating. That means supporting previous studies. This is my finding. It is so different from what other researchers have found. And we are interested. We are interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. If you have any
I
other
hope got
questions.
many questions to Dr. TJ, because
you can email me. I know it's late for you all. If you want to email me.
no problem. Malaysia is only 10:45 now, PM. Sorry for the timing just now. I was confused the US time just now, early morning.
Yeah, it's okay. We too didn't realize. Especially, I think bigger apology goes to Shirl. I'm so sorry that I too didn't realize that.
I was thinking 12 hours difference between Malaysia.
It's 13 hours now.
13 hours, huh? Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? I know it's a long night, late night. I'm sure so many of you are hungry. Just maybe not eaten yet dinner.
Anyway, good morning, USA.
Good morning. Good evening.
Okay, it was a fine presentation anyway. And you were telling about how a literature review in overall. You were coming up with that literature review where you were touching about creativity in a person. This creativity is connecting things. You know, when Francis Bacon was telling about reading, he said, reading makes a man full. But in the same context, he has said, a conference makes an ready man. I hope the people here are ready to go ahead with the research. But only when he writes, he becomes an example. A literature can be done when we can start ourselves, or we can read ourselves, but believe when we submit it, you become an exact person to be a doctorate. So you have put on lights how to go ahead, how to deal with research, and how you have to go in depth into it. Anyway, thank you, ma'am, and thank you for the wonderful questions what Dr. Balakrishnan and Dr. Ganeshan have shooted. And I request the audience to have certain questions, because a good presentation only ends with questions. Without questions, that's not a good presentation. I hope.
Oh boy.
Not easy to get a speaker from United States, in fact. So this is the time to.
And so early in the morning. We were jolted by 1 hour ahead.
Yeah. Luckily, you came in on time with Dr. Shita.
Dr. Sud is the one. She's the one who had to get ready in 5 minutes.
Dr. Tilaga, now America opened the border already. Can we fly to America?
America
okay,
never
good.
closed the border. America never closed the border. Never closed.
Oh, okay. So means once Malaysia, I think, will open
Waiting for
soon,
it.
then we can fly to USA. Eh? Okay, very good, very
Yeah,
good.
Malaysia has to open the border. US never closed the border. US border has always been open.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah. I'm waiting to come to Malaysia because Malaysia.
Yeah, sure. DJ, this year you must come back, I think.
I'm hoping to come back. Yeah. Any questions? Both Dr. Sud and I are here, so you can ask. Even both of us can respond to any questions. Okay. Nobody has a question. Either the presentation was too good that nobody has a question.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's Asian culture like that, but slowly, don't worry. They are very good actually. Most of them. There are some students from Iran also, Iranian.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah.
Student, I think. Prof, your student, right?
Yeah, my student for Iranian. She's a very young girl, only about 24 years, doing PhD. Imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
24 years old, PhD, very intelligent girl.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah, we have very young people because I think the US schooling system, they end high school quite at a young age. So they are in our PhD program very young. Because there's no chat function. Otherwise, if you have chat function,
Yeah,
some
I mean,
Yeah, we
but
have messages, ma'am. We have message
messages.
option here.
oh, you have. Oh,
Side.
okay.
Maybe TJ, you can share your slides to Dr. Frank, maybe.
Already.
Maybe you can. Oh, already, right? Okay,
In
okay.
Asian, so it's shared actually. He was on a travel, like, so that's what he couldn't
Oh.
send it to me.
Okay, okay. No, that's fine. I have sent him the Word document, the 2 Word document, the graphic
Okay,
organizer,
okay.
and the PowerPoint slide.
Yeah,
The Word
it was.
document is from North Carolina University.
Okay, anyway, 2 people, great people, were from the same university and the same department. One, the chair of the department and the program director. You have come ahead with a good presentation. You have enlightened us this evening, and for you it's the morning. Anyway, both are the different poles. It's attracting or repelling, I don't know. But anyway, it was useful. So thank you for Dr. Shiril Sood and Dr. Tilaga Jagaya. Thank you for joining with us and enlightening of people with your words of experience and your words of knowledge. Anyway, thank you.